Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome, everybody. It's a good day to have an afternoon show, and I am so delighted that you could join me and with my wonderful author that is with me today. This is a special book. It's on the secret life of Mother Mary, and it's a book that, you know, it's time that we got a better education of the people that have created a story that major religions have referred to, you know, for the last 2,000 years for sure. This is from the back of the book. Many women have trouble with the image of the Virgin Mary, a young woman whose most esteemed quality has been celibacy. Yet, as Marguerite reveals in inspiring depth, Mary was not just a docile maiden chosen by God to be the mother of Jesus. She was a great spiritual master in her own right, a sought-after healer and holy priestess who continued her public work long after Jesus' resurrection. The book reveals the secret life of Mother Mary as a deeply revered community leader, a miracle worker, and advanced spiritual practitioner. Marguerite shows how nurturing a relationship with the world's most famous holy lady can provide healing, empowerment, and the development of your own womb powers. Marguerite Rigoglioso is an award-winning author, oracle, and founding director of Seven Sisters Mystery School. She's the foremost authority on the history and practice of divine birth and a celebrated pioneer in the revival of Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and the womb mysteries, particularly in her books, The Secret Life of Mother Mary and The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception. The book, A Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception, we've already done an interview on, and you can find that in our library and on YouTube if you want to go back and listen to that interview as well. Through deep communion with the Marys, the Pleiades, and Goddess Sophia, Marguerite guides people to reclaim their sacred voice, intuitive power, and soul calling. It's an amazing book. She's an amazing researcher and provider of information and insight and wisdom, and to get a greater depth of understanding of the Marys, of the womb mysteries, of this amazingly, I guess we'd call her almost an avatar, Mother Mary, and how she has quietly still been out there over the many centuries and continues to be. It's something that I think a lot of us have to do a lot more research into and understand the power that this woman had and how she shared it not only with, you know, those around her, but in educating Jesus while he was still in her womb. So welcome to the show, Marguerite.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. It's great to be with you again.
Well, I'm looking forward to today too, because this is something important that the Bible doesn't bring out. And Go figure, it's written by men mostly. But when they were putting the texts together to create the Bible, they weren't looking to elevate Mary. They were looking to elevate Jesus. And without her, her teachings to him, there wouldn't be Christianity.
That's right.
So
She's the founder of the whole, what we might call the Sophia Christos mission or movement. And actually, it began with her mother before her, Anne, who divinely gave birth to Mother Mary, just as Mother Mary divinely gave birth to Jesus. So this is a lineage of women who had womb powers and were all about, now is the time on planet Earth, 2000 years ago, we've got to seed this energy into the human family to help humanity from, many, I don't know, millennia, really, of problems on the planet.
Well, I think what most people don't realize is that all of the miracles that he performed, she did before him.
That's right. She had those Siddhic powers, what they call Siddhic powers. She was able to bring the dead back to life. She, she had command of the elements, the earth, air, fire, and water, so she could do seemingly miraculous things.
Mm-hmm.
And she was able to do high-level healings of people, like cure them instantly of illness. So yes, I mean, Jesus learned a lot of what he knew from his mother, even starting when he was in the womb, and she would be communicating with him, and she would be communicating with astral beings, angels, we might call them. But she was conferring all of this knowledge onto him before he even took his first steps in the world.
Well, that as well, but once he began his ministry, she sort of backed up and let him take center stage, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when he was crucified, it was she who helped him to resurrect.
Yes, that is according to the late Hindu saint Sri Kaleshwar, who was on our planet until 2012 when he crossed over at age 39. But he brought through all of this information that has been written on ancient manuscripts created from palm leaves that are in India and numerous other places. And he collected the information. And he also claimed to have past life memory of being with the Holy Family that indicates that Mother Mary not only gave divine birth to Jesus, but she gave divine rebirth to Jesus by resurrecting him through her womb powers. So that's a whole story that I do cover quite a bit in The Secret Life of Mother Mary.
Well, the other thing too is that she orchestrated her own assumption.
That's right. What we call assumption or dormition, depending on which tradition, Eastern or Western, was really her ascension. Okay. It was her ascension process, her final move from human to full blown goddess. And so this was a very great ritual at the end of this life, which was one of many lives that she had had, according to Sri Kaleshwar. It was her final life in which she was able to accomplish all she needed to really go full rainbow body and to merge with the goddess.
I think what to me is so important is that the process that she went through in order to prepare herself for the birth as she did is a process that is alive and well today. And that doesn't mean that we're birthing new avatars all over the place, but the spiritual understanding and wisdom that comes from this process is important to society today.
Yes.
As it was then.
Yes, yes. And, Mother Mary was working with the technology of parthenogenesis, where she became whole in and of herself. She had the yin and the yang fully equal and activated within her. And that's what allowed her to stimulate the division of one of her eggs in order to conceive Jesus. Now, there's a spectrum of how women work divine conception. All right.
Mhm.
It goes all the way to tantric sacred marriage union. And even normal old people who are not practicing what we would call sacred ritual, magic, sex, or whatever, can conceive divine children according to the materials that Sri Kaleshwar collected from the ancient palm leaf manuscripts and put into what he calls the holy womb chakra system. And so a couple can engage in union while repeating one mantra. And then when the woman does become pregnant, she repeats another mantra as much as she can during the gestation of the child. And this gives birth to what Sri Kaleshwar called a divine child. So it is part of a spectrum of practices and technologies that are available to people today. It is a living stream, and it is something by which we could more consciously bring in children at this point.
That's fascinating. I know that there are a lot of people that are practicing womb magic, but are they really trying to bring through a child, or are they trying to bring through the wisdom and the spiritual energy that is a part of the whole process?
Well, both, and it really depends on the particular woman and her focus. For younger women who are still menstruating, they may choose to put these energies into having a conscious conception, okay?
Mhm.
And or they may just focus on clearing and elevating their womb powers so that they can manifest it in different ways in their life through, holding sacred space in a partnership, through developing healing powers, okay, through just what they are emanating, right? So there's this whole process. And then, of course, older women who are postmenopausal can have a very vitally active womb chakra, as Sri Kaleshwar calls it, which it's like separate but related to the second chakra.
Mhm.
And they can create, many, many things from that space in alternative creative modes. Okay.
Well, to me, it's when you talk of womb magic, to me that is creation.
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
becoming one with the great goddess, Barbara, right? It's really feeling that connection, that unity, that power, and really using it on the planet for good.
yeah, and what I found fascinating was that these women that were practicing the womb magic, there were two ways you could go. You could do it without a partner,
That's
or
right,
you
the
could do it with a
parthenogenesis.
partner.
Yes, exactly. So there's the parthenogenesis, what Mother Mary did and what her mother did before her. They were not active sexually with a male partner, although their male partners were supporting them in other ways. But then you go all the way to, the women who would conceive through interdimensional union
Mhm.
with a deity, which was a way that we see encoded in the ancient Greek stories of the maidens having astral, sex with various deities,
Mhm.
all the way to the sacred marriage of like the king and the queen. Excuse me. Must be an important point. The king and the queen, or the pharaoh and the queen. That was the technology used in ancient Egypt,
Mhm.
and then all the way, as I'm saying, to regular couples today who can conceive consciously using mantra technologies. And then, of course, there all are the royal lineages like of the King Arthur and Guinevere time.
Yeah.
And ideally, the royal lineages on the planet were engaged in tantric union as a means of bringing forth a divine child. Those practices either were lost or degenerated over time, and therefore the power, the purpose, and the service activity of the king and the queen got lost in all of that, as humanity really started descending into our our fall, you might say.
Absolutely. It is a fall.
Yeah.
And what has bothered me greatly over the years is that we seem to be on a pattern that we're repeating from the past,
Yeah.
which isn't a healthy one, and yet we have the power to stem the flow,
Yes.
to change the course of what's happening.
That's right. And many of us are doing that now through numerous ways, self-healing being the primary one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you must engage in the self-healing as a spiritual person in order to be effective spiritually, as a presence on the planet, perhaps even a leader. So many people are finding their ways to awaken to their connectivity to the divine realm, source, infinite source, and to be operating from that place. There are plant medicines and so forth. I mean, there are suggestions that Mother Mary may have even used sacred substances or medicines as part of her divine conception work.
Well, not only that, but her diet.
That's right. Her diet was specialized. It was very purified. Right. So I think that although things have been looking bleak for quite some time, we have the capacity to elevate ourselves as a human race. And the advent of avatars like Mother Mary and Yeshua are part of that movement forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, you refer to her as a rainbow healer.
Yeah.
Want to explain that title? It's a great title.
Well, they talk about Buddhist monks and other kinds of monks who go rainbow body after they leave their body. There sometimes are seen rainbows in the sky over the dwelling where they left their body. And sometimes the body disappears down to leaving only the fingernails, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
These are documented in India and beyond Tibet and so forth. Mother Mary had a similar kind of situation where her body was not found after her ascension.
Yeah.
We could say she went rainbow body. And although we don't have stories of rainbows being above her dwelling, there are stories of different sounds emanating and, those kinds of things. So she was a rainbow body practitioner, we could say, in how she left her body and where she went.
Well, I think the other thing that I found endearing is that you were able to connect her to the Fae, and
Yes.
and that to me made great sense. I mean, I think that the thing about people like Mother Mary, people like Mary Magdalene, people like Jesus, they aren't meant, they aren't made to be recognizable as people. They are a title, but you don't, and yet with Mother Mary, the connection to the Fae and how she danced and how there was laughter and there was joy. And to me, that's what spirituality is. The more joy you have, the greater the laughter, the greater the wisdom, the greater the contact to the spirit. I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
And with her, the connection to the Fae, just I thought, oh no, I can see that. That makes a great deal of sense.
Yes, it's encoded in the medieval times. with Mother Mary, or maidens that are in the role of Mother Mary, being in these great gardens, these great garden tapestries, where Mother Mary's was, all the flowers of the known medieval world in Europe were named after her. They had, a scientific name, they had a common name, and then they had a Marian name. So that's connecting them in the ancient memory. That's connecting the Fae and Mother Mary, showing a very deep understanding. And then we have the testimony of the fairy seer David Spangler, whose guide Marielle, as I write about in The Secret Life of Mother Mary, basically said that Mother Mary is of the same energetic lineage as the She, the people of peace, who essentially could be seen as one with the fairy races, or perhaps even the progenitors, or parents of the fairy races. So there's a lot of evidence that connects Mother Mary, not just in the more contemporary spiritual mind, with the Fae, but going back to the medieval understanding in Europe.
I think one of the one of the things that when I got to that part of the book, I started to chuckle, because you were connecting her to the unicorn,
Yes,
to the tapestries that are at the oh gosh,
Cluny Museum and the cloisters.
the cloisters. I have been to the cloisters. I
Yes.
have seen those tapestries,
Yes.
and I got
Yes.
kicked out because I touched them.
Yeah, it's so tempting, isn't it?
I gave
No,
it.
I mean, and the thing is that right there shows you that unicorns are not a new age thing. They, like the fairies, were encoded in the ancient memory of medieval Europe as being something real that predates history, in a sense. But Mother Mary was deeply, deeply connected with the unicorn as a being, as a light being, an astral being that is from beyond this plane, but had a presence into this plane, and was always connected with women's womb mysteries. That is why we have the unicorn that is always lying in the lap of the Virgin Maiden. And you see Mother Mary depicted with unicorns in ancient stained glass and things like that. So this is talking about deep mysteries that really have reality on the esoteric realm.
Well, what I learned from your book that I didn't see when I was looking at the tapestries and being just so drawn to them that I had to touch them. Happily, I had seen the rest of the place, so I wasn't so sad about getting kicked out. And I kind of looked at the guard when he asked me to leave, and I said, I'm going, but it's worth it. But what I learned from your book, which I had to go back and look at the tapestry again, the fact that there was a frog in the bottom right-hand corner of the tapestry.
Yes.
And so, I went back and I looked, and yeah, it's there. And
It's
it
there.
was sending a message. Want to tell what the message was like?
Yes. Well, 15 years or so ago, I was there, and the particular tour guide that I happened to be with, because I don't think all of them necessarily speak about this, but pointed out this frog and said it may well have been a hallucinogenic frog, the type that seers would lick the skin of in order to go into altered states of consciousness. That totally captured my imagination, and I remembered it for years and years, up until the time when I was writing the book, understanding the connection of Mary and the unicorns, and then understanding the connection of Mary, Jesus, and the unicorn tapestries, and the fairies, because they're all the maidens, and all of this happens in this grand fairy garden, essentially. And then the frog as being the sign of one way that humans can advance their multidimensional consciousness, awakening through sacred substances that could be plant-based or could be, as in the case of the frog, animal based. So that points us to the idea that, ancient spiritualists, ancient seers were understanding about the fairies and the unicorns precisely because they could open their consciousness through these plant medicines, and that Mary would have been in that tradition as well.
I think what impressed me so much was the fact that, it wasn't that they were drugging out all the time.
No.
It was using it to get to a place inside of themselves where they could let go of the preconceived notions and allow another reality to take place within consciousness.
Well put. Precisely.
And
yes.
It's not that I'm going to go looking for a frog to lick, but
well, and you know what, Barbara? That's why they have the three witches in Macbeth who are talking about toads and frogs, and also why we have that image of the witch with the green paste on her face that could have had hallucinogenic substances, and frog skin could have been one of the substances that they partook of to fly on their broom. What is that? That is flying into astral consciousness, going on journeys. And of course, the whole thing became made ugly and, demonized and so forth. But the witches of Europe, were kind of like the last vestige of these shamanic groups that kept the understanding of the interdimensional realms alive and integrated them into their lives.
Well, I think that's something that not many people understand, that hallucinogenics have been used since the beginning of time.
Time immemorial. Exactly. We have evidence of cannabis being used back in, the Scythian times and, West Asia, and mushrooms being used in Russia and all sorts of places, and Europe as well. And, every continent most likely has these kinds of traditions, because this was a way that humanity could keep its connection to fifth dimension and higher after we had come into this fall and into this thick three-dimensional reality.
Well, not just that, but it takes you into the area of using herbals and medicinals for healing.
That's right. It's all of a feather.
Yeah.
The poisons were the hallucinogens, and they were related to the healing. The ancient medieval garden had 4 quadrants, and that is still at the cloisters, by the way, if you go there.
Yes.
The aromatic herbs, the flowering herbs, the medicinal herbs, and the hallucinogenic herbs. Okay. So they're all in 4 different quadrants. So these people were practicing. These were the original pharmacists.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not, I mean, I'm sure that everywhere there has always been somebody that misused these things, but not to the degree they're being misused today, for sure. Yeah. I know that it just, to me, was just, and I remember the cloisters. I remember, going there, and I remember, the amazing tapestries that you sit back and you think, how long did it take them, and how, you kind of can't conceive of the work and the energy that went into them, but the story has been provided in so many different ways, and it's a matter of, and you've been pulling, a fragment from here and a fragment from there, and it kind of makes such a wonderful kaleidoscope system.
Yeah, and there's that whole other series of tapestries that are in the Cluny Museum in France that depict a cycle of a female virgin maiden going through a series of initiations of the senses, where each of her senses is affected in a certain way that she opens her consciousness. And then she is seeing the unicorn, and the unicorn is able to unite with the lion, its mortal enemy. So she's reducing dualities and she's coming into her sovereignty. So that's worth, I talk about that in The Secret Life of Mother Mary. I think it's a very illuminating and exciting understanding of the maiden, of the virgin, of the relationship to Mother Mary, of the relationship to the unicorn, the relationship to expanded consciousness, and all of that being used to create peace on the planet.
I know that a lot of years ago, I had a large garden in the front of our house, and I had planted flowers that my grandfather had a garden of, and I was fortunate in that there were streetlights on two corners, so I could work around the clock.
Yeah.
And I remember one evening I was sitting just relaxing because I had worked really hard and the dahlias were gorgeous, and there was a mist coming up from the ground, and I saw unicorns grazing
Wow.
on the garden. And
Wow.
I went upstairs and I woke my mother up, and she was not into a lot of the stuff I'm into. But she was certainly supportive. And I said, you got to come down. It's magic happening down there. And she did. And we didn't see the unicorns anymore, but I walked her around the garden, and, I said, and it was still, the mist was still there. And she said, do you smell that? And I said, I smell flowers. No. And she said, I smell my father's pipe.
Oh, wow.
And I said, that is so cool. He must be around here. And
yes.
she
It's
just,
like you had created a portal. You had created a portal. And you see, they'll come to people who are willing and have a certain purity to them, who are open. So you could see them, your mother could not, but because the magical portal had been created, she could sense who she was familiar with.
Yeah.
Her father on the other side. That's so beautiful. What an amazing story.
It was one of the more magical moments of my life, I think.
Oh my gosh.
It was just, there was not mist in anybody else's yard. It was just
right.
like,
So what you were co-creating with those flowers really did create an opening.
it
How
opened
amazing.
something, for sure.
Yes.
But it was my mother, to the moment she passed away, she would talk about that, smelling her father's pipe smoke. And it was one of those magic moments that you hang on to years and years and years later. The other thing that I wanted to go into with you especially is that after Jesus died, there's really no mention of what happened to Mother Mary. And yet she took on a role of helping to establish what became the Christianity.
That's right. She was the main one. She was the main one. She held them all together. She was the leader of the men and the women, according to her ancient biographies, which are, available. And I talk about them in The Secret Life of Mother Mary. She was the absolute leader. She was a mentor and teacher to Mary Magdalene. She was a mentor to Peter. Peter was the head of the men, and Magdalene was the head of the women, and Mother Mary was the head of all of them. And she would have the apostles and others go out into the world to share these teachings during the year. And then they would always come back to her at, so-called Easter. The time of Christ's resurrection. So she was busy. And she stayed in Jerusalem for a while. And then I believe, it's thought that she went to Turkey, to Ephesus. And there is a house there that is thought to be her house, her final place where she lived. And she, up until the end of her life, she was performing miracle healings and so forth.
But why is not any of that chronicled? Why is it not taught?
the sacred feminine has gone missing under patriarchy and deemed not as important. So any documents were either burned or suppressed or rejected by the institutions of the churches and so forth. But some of them remain available. Her biographies, which were written anywhere between the 1st and 4th century of the Common Era, were probably based on these documents that have gone missing, much of which have gone missing. And it just becomes the feminine, and the role of female leaders become something that the male leadership is threatened by and needs to put into the periphery, into the corner, or disappear it altogether. And that's something we're healing from, the denigration and the dismissal of the feminine. And so, again, we are in a period now where we are awakening to the sacred feminine and to the power of women as spiritual leaders. And we are seeing what has happened under a distorted patriarchy. And so a lot of the healing is taking place right now. My book is one example, my books on Mother Mary. And there have been many pioneers on so many levels, from academic all the way down to shamanic, that have been and are still doing this work of awakening our consciousness to the reality of the sacred feminine, and then healing that aspect of the feminine on earth and healing the masculine so that men and women can come together again in harmony.
Well, it's even the Magdalene.
Yes, she's part of that, part of that sacred union with Yeshua, right?
Yeah.
That's her role, is Mother Mary brings in the avatar, and Mary Magdalene communes with the avatar so that they have presumably children, and a lineage, which I do believe. I've read numerous very convincing indicators of that in the ancient Gnostic texts, that they were partners. Okay. So she helped continue that lineage onto the earth plane.
Well, with the Magdalene, I'm wondering, where did it start? Because of course she was not a whore,
right?
But did her tutelage with Mother Mary, did that happen, when she came into the fold, so to speak, or was the Magdalene initially into the womb magic, even before she came?
Right. I mean, what I get is that it's kind of a both and thing. What I've received on the astral plane is that Mary Magdalene met Mother Mary when she was in her teens. And yet Mary Magdalene continued to receive initiations from Egypt and other Essene groups, things that we really do not have much in the way of records of, but are in the Akashic records. And so she was getting her initiations on various aspects of womb power, womb magic, and so forth, her own power as a priestess. And then she did come into the fold with Mother Mary as both a student and a teacher, really, and then an equal consort with Yeshua. She was one of the three who always walked around walked around Jesus. Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Mother Mary's sister, who was also given the title Mary, Mary Parugita. So these three women were the high holy priestesses who walked with Yeshua and supported him.
When you look at what they've done, how they've done it, and the spiritual aspect of their work, and then you look at Yeshua, who was the foundation for Christianity, but the magic didn't come through him into what was created. How sad.
I mean, he had the abilities and so forth, and so did they, and their stories get either dismissed, as in the case of Mother Mary, or denigrated, as in the case of Mary Magdalene. But again, we're reawakening to this now so that we can understand the sacred marriage between Magdalene and Yeshua as equals.
Exactly. And so you then get to the point where did he survive beyond crucifixion?
Yeah, I mean, there are different ways to look at it. One is that he left his body and went into an astral resurrection. That's kind of the typical Christian view. Although, when you really look at the Gospels and they see these appearances of Jesus, he's on the ground, you know?
Yeah.
So then comes in the Kaleshwar view, which is that Jesus, Mother Mary brought him back to life the way Jesus brought Lazarus back to life.
Yeah.
Through these holy womb mantra practices as he was lying on her body, that they were working a yoga together that I talk about in The Secret Life of Mother Mary, and that she resurrected him body and soul, and that he was able then to kind of move between these dimensions back and forth. So he was seen, not seen, seen, not seen, seen in far lands, and that he eventually went with Mary Magdalene to India, which is where they raised their children. So
Yeah.
that's a whole mystery. And then Magdalene came back to Europe, France in particular, and spent the end of her life there, presumably after Jesus, decided to fully materialize out of the third dimension.
Well, when you look at the womb magic, it appears that after the Mary has served her purpose, so to speak, birthed whatever spiritual aspect or child or whatever, that they basically then were released so that they could carry on a human
Yes.
existence as well.
Yes.
Could the same have been said to Jesus, that he was here and that he served his purpose, that he created a teaching that would survive him because of the disciples and everything, so that he was released from that and able to go to India,
Yeah.
and obviously still teach, but not in the same way. But
right.
So
and apparently there is evidence that Jesus was there.
Oh yeah.
With the in India, with the implication that it was after the resurrection, So
I think there's a grave someplace that they say is his grave.
Okay, well, so there are mysteries in the West which hasn't fully connected with that whole information stream,
Mm-hmm.
In the East. Yeah, it's like there are still mysteries to be uncovered about Jesus, right?
Well, he had a mission, he had a purpose, he
did.
served the purpose, he laid the foundation, he created the teachings with her help, obviously, and that even after he was no longer in the picture, she continued the teachings.
Yes.
So that I do
Yes.
I do wonder if, in a way, he was released from the primary purpose and allowed to continue his life and with a wife and children and teachings.
Yes, it's an intriguing idea. Yeah, he just went to another part of the world where he was less known publicly, right?
Well, there's a book out there, and I don't remember the author. I wish I did. It was called He Walked the Ley Lines. And it talks about him being in North America. It talks about him going, I think it's an old book.
Wow.
But I do remember.
Why not? Because he could have been riding, he could astral what the Buddhist monks talk about, skywalking.
Well,
he could skywalk, the Buddhist monks were known to like lift up and just be walking in the sky, and they could walk very rapidly to other locations.
Well, ancient Native American and South American philosophies talk of a white man with a beard coming and
Wow.
teaching, so that it wouldn't surprise me. But
No, it's certainly intriguing, isn't it?
oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's so many layers that are being revealed now.
And they aren't being put down as once they were.
Yes.
That's
Because people are opening up to their multidimensional knowing. They're having their medicine journeys. They're having their intuitions. There are enough people saying things now that we have to look twice at things.
well, I think too, we're coming into a season for Christians,
That's right.
especially that Mary's service, so to speak, is minimized, and it shouldn't be. It should be, I mean, having a baby at her age, and
She
having
was young,
yeah, she
very
she
young.
she was very young.
Under 16, she might have been as young as 12.
Wouldn't she have had to start her period in order to? Well, I guess anything's possible.
Well, here's the thing. It is said in one of the texts, the Infancy Gospel of James, that she did start her period, which is why she was ejected from the temple
Yeah.
in one of the layers of that. But the earlier versions of that document indicate she may have always remained in the temple. And what I have received in numerous ways and talk about in The Secret Life of Mother Mary is that these women may never have menstruated because they didn't have to menstruate. They had purified diets, and so they didn't gather the toxins in their body that needed to be released every month. So they didn't have, and because of the diet, because of their practices, they weren't menstruating, and so these women could have kept those practices going all the way up through what is traditional menopause, but there was no menstruation, there was no menopause. So that would explain how Anne was able to be fertile into her later years, Mary's mother, and Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, same thing. So it brings up a lot of interesting points about, well, what were these women doing? What were their practices, right? How were they engaging this divine birth process?
Well, if they are, I mean, that's really something to think about.
Yeah. No menstruation needed.
No
They
men
could retain. They didn't have to have the monthly expulsion.
Well, that would, definitely explain Sarah for sure.
Yes. Sarah, well before Anne, Sarah gave birth to Isaac.
It's, I think that, I mean, while your book is fascinating and it brings out all sorts of new stuff, it also, you refer back to meditations. You provide so much more information than just the intellectual stuff. There are meditations, there are connections to your website, and your website has a phenomenal amount of material in it for people to learn from, to grow from, to take part in.
Yes, if people want those meditations and you don't have the book and you don't have the specific URL, you can go to sevensistersmysteryschool.com. The seven is written out SEVEN. Just scroll down a bit on the page and it says inspiring and healing meditations. And then it says, here are 8 meditations for empowerment and healing from Mother Mary. And so you can just sign up for that and get them. Okay. Each one happens to be calibrated toward a particular chapter, but they are beautiful as standalone experiences as well.
I mean, you've got the Seven Sisters Mystery School. Why 7 sisters? Why 7?
Why 7 sisters? Because it is referencing the Pleiades, the 7 sisters of the Pleiades, our 7 star mothers of our world, of whom Mother Mary might be considered the 8th, because all of them were understood to be virgin mothers who star-seeded much of the human DNA. That goes in cross-cultural stories, and especially back to the ancient Greeks. And I talk a lot about that in my book, The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, my very first book.
Mhm.
So they were thought to be 7 women or 7 Pleiadian worlds that came to the earth plane and delivered some of their DNA through birthing practices, not through technological scientific practices that some other star systems might have been involved in. This was not genetic manipulation. It was loving and caring birthing.
I think too, they did bring forth what a lot of people have called the shining ones.
Yes, right. The shining ones, cross-culturally. We have these stories of, and encoded in their names or things, or the word shine or light or whatever. The 7 sisters of the Pleiades have a lot of that in their names. Yes, the shining ones being considered these beings who have come and gone from our planet, and who are star allies, star nation allies.
I think what gets me is that, all of this goes back thousands, tens of thousands of years, probably. And it brings us forward to a time when chaos is ruling. And yet the tools are here.
Yeah.
And that to me is what makes your book so important for people to understand. We haven't been left alone to wallow in whatever we're wallowing. Absolutely. But the reality is there is available the tools. And what I find fascinating is that it's usually women.
Yes.
And we're in a male-dominated world right now, and yet it's the women that can pull us out of it.
Yes, and that's what's happening. As women become re-empowered, and as we understand our communal mission with men, and as men and women do their healing, then we come together and we are far stronger than any one gender alone.
I think it's so important for people to read your book.
Thank you.
Because it gives you hope.
Yes.
And you don't have to necessarily go through the process of becoming a womb person.
Right. You don't.
But
I do have the Holy Womb Chakra teachings as a course that people can take on the Seven Sisters Mystery School website. Under the courses tab, I provide the Sri Kaleshwar materials, the mantras, the practices, the sacred diagrams or yantras. So if you do want to dive into that, it is live and available.
And something that people will be drawn to.
Yes.
But at the same time, if you're not going to go wholeheartedly into it, just the understanding of the powers available to you, the threshold to cross into the portal of the connection to the spirit, to Mother Mary, it's there for everybody. And it I guess it has to do with your intent.
It does. Your intent, your mission that you feel intrinsically that you've come with, what your impetus, your interests. Yes, but it is available to those who are curious and hungry.
And again, it's there if people reach for it. And I think that the big deal is you can't get out there and hard sell it or have a commercial on YouTube or whatever, blinking, womb magic here. But
now. No, it's a calling. It's people who touch into this will have their memories re-stimulated. And it's the people who are having their memories re-stimulated, their awakening starting or in process at whatever level, that are going to want to reach out for this material.
Absolutely. I just noticed our time. We are close to the end here. And I want to thank you so much, because your material is beautiful. It's an honor to read. I took a look at the book, and I usually separate my book into sections for every day so I can get a whole book read in a week. And I read your book twice because I couldn't put it down.
Oh, blessed be. I'm so glad. Yes, and I get that feedback that people can read through it quickly. Now it's
Oh, yeah.
dense. It's like a very dense spread, but it's not laborious and it's not a hugely long book.
No,
So
but I would recommend people to do the meditations, to do
yeah,
the thinking, to do the journaling after each chapter, because it'll tell you about yourself
yeah,
and your own spiritual journey. And everybody's is different, and
yes,
their purpose is different, their direction is different, but your material opens them up to the potential they carry within, which is
absolutely.
absolutely magnificent. So I want to
Yes.
thank you again.
Oh, thank
And
you for having me and for
oh,
being interested
oh,
and for seeing the unicorns and talking about it.
yes, that was magic. That was magic.
That's
So
magic. I love
hang,
that story.
hang in there. Don't go anyplace. I'm going to end the show. I have a couple things I want to mention to you afterwards. So
All
thank
righty.
you, everybody, for being with us, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.